Hi, my name is Jeremy. I am a fabricator, welder, mechanic, jack of all trades, and this is my journey to build a replica of a 1936 or 7 Auto Union Type C. Now, if you don't know about the Type C, it is an incredibly interesting automobile. It's the first mid-engined Grand Prix car. They have their genesis in 1933, 34, I can't remember, 34 actually, I think, with the Auto Union Type A. The B followed, C after that. The D was the last model, but that was after a rule change, which frankly made them pretty ugly, and they went from a V16 down to a V12. But what I'm sitting on right now is the chassis jig that I'm going to use to build it. I have already built the adapter plate and various sundry items for the powertrain as of filming this intro. So I hope that you enjoy. It's going to be probably a fairly drawn out process because I have a job. This is going to be a hobby in the background. Basically, the car will be very modernized internally. So it will have a modern tubular chassis with full driver surround, full 5-point harnesses, bucket seat, roll cage, like a roll hoop over your head. It'll have headlights that will drop into the bodywork, so when you're not using them, they don't stand out, because the original cars were Grand Prix cars, so they did not have any lights of any kind. It was also 1936 and 7, so cars didn't really have turn signals or anything at that point anyway. So it will have turn signals, headlights, tail lights, the whole 9 yards to be street legal. It will have torsion bar suspension, which the originals did have. So the rear will be longitudinal torsion bars running lengthwise up and down the frame rails, and will hold the car up from a Dion tube type rear axle, which is a whole other thing that I'll explain in another video. The front end will be a Volkswagen Beetle, a Volkswagen Type 1 torsion bar beam, which will be modified somewhat to make it more aesthetically accurate to the original cars. All of the shock absorbers and stuff will be inside the bodywork, run by push rods and cantilevers and such, to maintain the aesthetic look of the original car with very minimal suspension outside of the bodywork. So if you look at the originals, which I will show many pictures of, I'm sure, they have very minimal suspension visible outside of the chassis, outside of the body of the, I guess you would say, fuselage of the car. So I'm going to be trying to pack everything I can into it, including torsion bars, which the originals did not have, as much as I can inside the bodywork. So a lot of the suspension is going to be cantilever, and that includes both the torsion bar suspension systems on the back, as well as the shock absorber systems on the back and the front. The car will still be mid-engined, rear-wheel drive. The current powertrain that I have is a 2000 to 2002, I believe, is the breakdown, Mercedes-Benz V12, an M137, which is a 5.8 liter V12. And before it gets started, I know the irony of putting a Mercedes-Benz engine in an auto unit when they were the most bitter rivals during the period that this car came from, the pre-war years. I understand that, but it's the coolest V12 I could find, and I don't want to just put a small block Ford or an LS in it to be, you know, ooh, it's got a motor. But so it's going to have a V12 it will have the correct, what you call, dorsal exhaust ports, which will be, my current plan is to have them run through a dual exhaust system where they can be run either straight out of the headers through those pipes or through a muffler system out through those pipes. So you still have the cool open header sound if you want, but it will also be street legal. It will still have the very tall, very skinny tires and wire wheels. Probably get those both from Coker Tire. Four-wheel disc brakes. Forgetting a lot. Oh yes, transmission will be a Subaru. Currently, I have a TY 751 6-speed out of a 2000, I believe, 15 to 17 Subaru WRX, which is fairly fragile, but the car is going to weigh less than 2,000 pounds and have really quite narrow rear tires. So I'm thinking that also the V12 only makes around 370 horsepower. So if I don't go crazy on the V12 hopping it up, I'm thinking the transmission will last. So we'll go with that principle. If not, the adapter plate that I have made and the flywheel adapter that I will make will both function just as well with one of the big heavy-duty STI transmissions from a Subaru STI. Those 6 speeds have a non-split case and are incredibly beefy. So if I get one of those, I might be able to step up to one of the later twin-turbo V12s that Mercedes offered. You know, go with 550 or 600 horsepower like the original cars had. The original cars, by the way, had I believe a 6-liter V16 that made 540 horsepower, I think. I'm just going off memory here. I'll try to include the actual number. And an incredible amount of torque all over the spectrum because they were a twin. They were a single-stage Roots supercharged V16. And they had both 4 and 5-speed transaxles. So this will mimic the original Powertrain layout. So the De Dion tube will not be accurate. The originals had swing arms, but the Type D that came after these did indeed have a De Dion axle as part of an increased focus on making the cars handle better, because the V12s weren't as powerful, so they went back to the chassis, and instead of the Type D's philosophy was raw power and make the car kind of able to go around corners, maybe. But Bernd Rosemeyer died in 1937, and he was pretty much the master of the swing arm auto unions. So after he died, they really had to kind of tame the cars down to be able to let the other drivers, who were all very good, nothing against them, but Bernd was just something about him clicked with the auto unions, which were very unusual for the time because the driver sat very far forward and they had an incredible amount of power that was way behind them. So the car changed directions very rapidly from the driver's vantage point. The tail would swing out very, very easily. So most Grand Prix cars at the time, the driver sat at the back. So if it started to turn, you could feel it because you're back there moving side to side with it. But on auto unions, you sat way up at the front with your toes out basically in front of the center line of the front wheels. So you were way out in front. So it was a very hard car to drive. I'm going with the De Dion because swing axles suck. See example Corvair. If you want to know what's cool about swing axles, they're terrible. And the genesis of this car is safety, which I know sounds ridiculous for building a 1930s Grand Prix car, but it is 2000 and currently 2021. And I don't want to die because I was too proud to say, oh, you know, maybe I should add seatbelts, or maybe it should have, a cage around the driver, or, common sense stuff. I have had a really bad motorcycle wreck. So the idea of this is basically going to be a motorcycle. You're going to have to wear a helmet, and I want to be strapped inside of a steel cage that will take the abuse so I don't have to, because getting ejected and tumbled down the road is no fun. I've done that. I have a metal plate in my hand. I have a whole bunch of road rash all over my arms and my legs, so no more of that. So I want to be contained in a little chamber of safety, and the rest of the car can disintegrate for all I care. Well, I would not like that to happen. But final note will be the bodywork. The body, I've thought about doing it in fiberglass, but I'm not going to. I'm going to have to, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to have to learn how to make aluminum body panels and I will make the whole body out of panels. I have a digital, like a 3D model of the car, which I will be able to hopefully extract measurements from and build the buck off of that, so the buck matches the original cars, with the exception of the dorsal fin on the cars comes up about here on the back of your head. So I'm going to enlarge that to stick up above your head so that the roll bar is above your head and keeps your head from getting kashumped down into your neck and collapsing all your neck vertebrae. But that's pretty much it. I hope you will follow along. I am very excited about this. I've been fascinated about these cars, by these cars, since I was a very young boy, because the German Grand Prix teams in the 1930s were just a different animal. Both Mercedes and Auto Union just dominated Grand Prix in the mid to late 1930s. So, and Auto Union just always kind of had my attention because it was so unusual, so different from all the other cars. And they just kind of look tough and brutish. So I've always loved them. So I'm going to build one. This table will actually be moved over to that corner of the shop, which is already where the engine and transmission are sitting. And the lathe and a bunch of other tools are already over there. But that's going to be kind of like the out of the way chunk of the shop. And I think that's pretty much it. As I go, I have a bunch of videos currently that I'm still editing. So I will get those out as quickly as I can, but it'll take time because I'm new to all this. I'm a very, what would you say, mechanical, analog person, and all the digital stuff is new to me. So filming, editing, all that stuff, even working with the 3D models is all new to me. So I am learning. So hopefully as we progress, the videos will get better in quality, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I do, because this is something I've wanted to do for 20 years probably. I've wanted one of these cars, so it's going to be a very fun journey for me. It'd be like childhood dreams come true, I guess you could say. So that's what this channel's about, and I hope you enjoy and follow along.